thanks everybody for taking the time to join. This is an ongoing part of the change series that Michael has been spearheading, so thanks to him for doing all the heavy lifting here. But I'm really excited for this because John has done some really clever stuff all in-house with SharePoint List. So he's going to take us through what he's done, how it works, how you could do it yourself, the pros and cons. So yeah, should be a really good session, but we definitely want to keep it interactive, and feel free to ask all and any questions in the chat. Do you want to just quickly do intros? Maybe Michael, if you want to start with intros, and then we can hand over to John.
Sure. Hi there, I'm Michael Blumenthal. I am a Microsoft MVP. I'm also the Microsoft Product Manager here at NORC, which means I run a small team of service owners responsible for service management and basically everything Microsoft. So service management of M365, but also like our enterprise agreement, our support agreement, Azure, anything Microsoft, my team is responsible for in some way. And so I'm excited to have John talk today about how we manage Message Center in our tenant. John, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is John Burkholder. I am an IT manager at NORC. I specialize in Copilot AI and Microsoft Quantum. My background is Microsoft all the time. I started way back on SharePoint, back when it was called Project Tahoe. And prior to that, I've been working with Microsoft products since, let's say it's been a long time. And then, Tom, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself since you're on this slide?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so for those of you who haven't met Tom Arbuthnot, I run Empowering Cloud, which is a community around M365. We do lots of podcasts, events, webinars, and I'm also CTO on our product side of ChangePilot, which is our change management service, which we'll talk a little bit about at the end to compare and contrast the build versus buy. But for this webinar, John is definitely the star of the show, and Michael and I are just backup dancers throwing some questions and comments in.
So I want to provide some context for what John's going to talk about. So we work for NORC. NORC is a social science research institute. We're a nonprofit and nonpartisan research institute. We've got about 2,400 staff. And managing change in M365 is very important to us. We've been doing this using Planner for a couple of years now, and we felt like there were some blockers there that we wanted to overcome. First of all, so as we thought about what we wanted to do after using Sync to Planner, we identified some requirements, and a big one was leveraging all the metadata. So if you think about a Message Center post, and not only has it got the explanation of what is changing, but there's certain data about that change, like what workload is it related to, when's it going to roll out, does it impact users, does it impact admins, that kind of metadata, and we really couldn't leverage that to the full extent in Planner. You'd get the message, and a lot of metadata would end up in the task body in a Planner task. So we wanted a better way to be able to leverage all the metadata. The other thing, as some of you have probably heard me say many times before, is M365 Service Change Management is a team sport. So we think about, we have 2 people dedicated to managing Exchange. We have people here dedicated to managing SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive. And so we have different service owners, and Planner doesn't understand that. Message Center certainly doesn't understand that. And so we wanted to bake in that concept of this person or set of people is responsible for a particular workload. We also wanted to automate things as much as possible. We want to automate the assignment of Message Center posts to service owners. We also wanted to get reminders about rollout dates, made sure that the correct teams were assigned, and we wanted the ability for some lightweight reporting, in particular the kind of reporting that list views offer, where we could see what's landing this month. We could see all the changes that are for a particular service. We could see all the changes that are user impacting. We could see all the changes that are deprecation. So these different views of the data that are relatively hard to do in Planner. And then we also wanted an ability to integrate with other tools and products, which some of that can be done with Power Automate, and John will talk about that as well. Additionally, when you get a message center post, there's a number of follow-up tasks that we wanted to be able to have a structured representation for. So if you think about what do we need to do with this task, well, sometimes it needs discussion by the people responsible for that workload, and then we would tag that as needs internal discussion. There are lots of times where, okay, we want to communicate to our end users about this change, and so we need to engage with our IT communication team, and so we would tag a post with that. And there are other times where we need to make sure that the service desk is, our service desk team or help desk team is aware of a particular change, so we tag it that way. And then there are some of those announcements that, oh my, we need to stand up a whole project around this with a project manager and a project plan, and there's substantial work that needs to be budgeted for, and so that gets tagged as turn into project.
And Michael, I guess it's worth saying that you've done entire sessions on how to use Planner and how to optimize Planner. Like, I feel like you've given it as good a go as anybody, but still had gaps where you wanted to do something more.
It was better than just trying to do things in Message Center, but as you said, there are gaps, and so you can see some of those gaps in the additional fields that we wanted to have. There was a lot there that wasn't being met by Planner, and so there were 3 approaches that we looked at before we decided to commit to our own. And Message Center natively really doesn't understand that Message Center management is a team sport, has no concept of service owners. There's very little capability to help you actually manage these things as tasks. Click. We wanted those additional fields to help us better track the work, and Planner couldn't do that. The filtering and sorting options are limited. We wanted more. We wanted better. So we started looking at around, and we looked at ChangePilot, which is one of the few and one of the best third-party options out there. And it has some nice things to offer, and we evaluated in 2024, but we decided that we should really roll our own for a couple of reasons. So with that being the context, I want to turn it over to John, and he can tell you about what we did.
So basically what it did was turn this into a 2-week process. I took all the requirements and I created documents and got sign off on those documents before I even started the work. And the reason for that is because it's one thing to just make a SharePoint list. It's another thing to put all this Power Automate behind it and make it work. So we wanted to make sure that we had everybody signed off that was going to be stakeholders in this in order to make sure that it was the right way that we needed to go. Then I went in and started making the SharePoint list, added the fields accordingly. Some fields I had to adjust after looking at what data was coming down from the import process. And then create that import process, make sure that we're in not only bringing new items down to that SharePoint list, but updating items that are already in the SharePoint list that have been updated by Message Center. And then Power Automate for assigning and notifications. That is the one where we say, okay, this is an Exchange one, it needs to go to such and such. Those automations are also a separate workflow. And we keep these 2 separate for a reason. One is I don't want to break this process by having this process have something go wrong with it. And that makes it so that, okay, the import and update process is going to happen no matter what. If I have to fix the assignments, then that's a whole nother different process. Then we have a 1-week transition. Now, that might seem aggressive for a lot of people, but the thing is, most people don't want to have to keep track of 2 separate processes at the same time for change management. If we can do a 1-week transition, that means, hey, we're just checking this stuff for 1 week, making sure that it lines up correctly. And then once it's done, we just flip over to this new process. And this new process has weekly reviews. So we'll get into that in a moment. But what happens is we will meet on every Tuesday afternoon. We will meet and we will go through anything that is tagged for needs group discussion, because those are the ones that don't need internal discussion. Those are within the team. But needs group discussion means this is a bigger thing than just something dealing with the Exchange. It may be something that deals with Teams, Exchange, SharePoint, maybe 3 different projects at the same time. Or it has something to do with communications, or it has something to do with Silver's desk. So that is why we have a weekly meeting to do reviews. So let's talk about the sections of this, and I'm going to actually go into the demo now to show you exactly what I've built. So in here, you'll see that this is a SharePoint list. It's actually tied to our Teams. So you'll see the little Teams icon. So this SharePoint list actually has all kinds of different fields that are associated to it. It's the ones that Michael had mentioned before, which are the ones that are coming down directly from Message Center, as well as the fields that we wanted to add in, which is the assigned to, the follow-up, the task status, decision status, decision date, and rationale. We also added some fields in here because we were like, okay, why aren't we annowing it? We wanted to show that there was an internal alternative. So if there's something specifically that may have come down in Copilot that we actually have another AI product for, then we would actually put the link in for the internal alternative. Stakeholders is something where it's showing all of the items that a stakeholder may have associated to it. We've given it different views. So we've got an all items shows every single item in the list, and assigned to me says, okay, these are assigned to me, but it may have multiple people that it's assigned to because it has different product requirements that are associated to it. So like you'll see this one has Power Automate, and this one has me, Satish, and Richard, whereas the one that's below it is Teams and Copilot, which will have me, Rick, Ryan, and Karthik. So it's different groups of products that I may be responsible for, and I assign according to the different types of activities that are associated to it. You'll see it was last modified by, you'll see different versions. So if you go into a specific task, one of the things that, actually, let's take a look here real quick and see if we can find one that's been updated. Yeah, here we go. So you'll see one here that says updated Microsoft Copilot legal agent. In here, part of that Power Automate script is to make sure that the timestamp is associated with what was updated, and then you'll see the content that's associated with that particular content, the body of it. But you'll also see underneath that the previous version of that. So there's the timestamp of the previous version of it and the body of that one as well, so that you can do a compare to the 2 different versions of that particular Message Center ID.
That's a really hard one, John, like, because Microsoft now, so we track over 50 tenants. Microsoft update about 60% of items. They'll change the dates, they'll add some documentation, they'll change words. So you can end up with multiple updates, sometimes literally 10, 12 updates on some of the items over time from a single item.
Yeah, and that was one of the important things that I wanted to make sure that it was doing, was appending to it rather than just overwriting it. Because, for instance, they may go in and say, okay, well, we are actually going to deprecate this. They'll change the tags associated and say deprecating as a tag that, as far as these are concerned. You'll notice that here is a major change box. That's something that you don't see in Planner. So if they're doing a retirement, they'll often mark that as a major change. You want to see those immediately. The task status, so we are tracking this particular task. It's still not in our tenant. The cool part about doing it in a SharePoint list is you can have comments, you can have conversations about this in the actual message area. Here's the follow-up field, and you'll see here where it says needs group discussion, not needed, completed, turn into project. So if we need to turn this into a group discussion, we just select that and it adds it into the group discussion filter. And then here's the decision status that we had talked about earlier: deferred, disabled, enabled, ignored, or investigating. And then here's stakeholders. These are people who will need to be aware of it if they decide to go in here. And the reason why we have it as a stakeholder is because if it's a new feature, the stakeholders should be aware that it's a new feature that's coming out. So we've
John,
put
sorry,
a workflow
Johnny
associated
in the
there.
chat's asked, how do you handle links and pictures?
So links and pictures come through. So you'll see here's a link right here, and it shows support.microsoft.com. Here's another link here. And then let me pull up one that might have a picture. Let's see here. It would be a UI one. Better build forms. That one got pictures. So pictures do automatically show in the body. If I could find one right away, that would be easier.
Part of that is because you chose it to be the kind of text field that supports rich text and images.
That is correct. I did choose the rich text option as far as, there it is.
Oh, nice.
So you'll see the screenshot with the image available, and then you can actually scroll down to the different images and see the different versions of it as well. So
yeah, I see there's lots of hearts for that, and that was one of the big things that irritated us for the longest time in Planner, was that they would put the images in, but as attachments on the task and not inline in the text, and so it was possible to understand which image was being referenced in the text. Microsoft did recently fix that, but it was a long time coming, and it was very painful until then. So yeah, it's the importance of having the images inline there. Otherwise, it's hard. You lose so much context, and it's so much harder to understand what they're talking about.
And then additionally, you'll see a link here. So that link actually takes you to the actual message center to see the message center post itself. So if you hate the way that this message center post is written, you can give it a thumbs down right there in the admin center. So we made it so that it's as easy as possible to get back to those particular features. All right. I'm watching my time a little bit because I want to make sure that I get through the workflows, but the SharePoint list is probably the most important part of this thing, and making sure that you build that list to have the right fields with the right type of expectation. And we wanted to make sure that published date and last modified date showed up so that you can actually see, here's something that's been updated from the last time, and then you can go in to it and actually see the different updates within the body of the message. So it was actually updated more than once. And there's the original. So this one was updated 2 times after it was originally released. All right. And then you can always tag somebody in this to make sure that they are looking at it specifically.
Yeah. And I would point out that comment, that the discussion ability provided by that comment pane is really powerful. And yes, Planner does have an ability to post messages on there, but this one is better, and you can tag people, and it helps keep the discussions about that item in one place.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the workflows a little bit, because there's a little bit of information that's got to be brought across for that. So this is my message center workflow, and basically I'm going to drop whatever it was doing and then go back here into message center timer. So I have 2 workflows. One is the message center workflow, and the message center workflow brings down the content from message center. And in here, the workflow just shows up like this. So it's got a HTTP token. That token is tied to your tenant, so that you're bringing down not everything in the world that's in the graph for Admin Center. We only want the stuff that's associated to our tenant. And then you'll see here's the body of it that's associated with client credentials. So this is how my admin login actually brings down that information, because as my user login, I can't get that information. So I create a token, I connect it to the Graph API, and then I mark that, and then next step would be go to HTTP data. And at that point, I want to bring down all the data associated to the messages. Now, one of the big questions that people have about this part of it is, How do I know what the data is that it's coming down from the message? What I do is I use my admin account and I go into Graph Explorer. Graph Explorer is at developer.microsoft.com/enus/graph/graph-explorer. And to do that, I just type in, get these Graph Explorer for the admin service announcement messages. Once I run that query, it pops out what this API information looks like. It gives me the fields that are associated to it. And at that point, I can get a better idea as to what the content looks like, what kind of fields are coming down, and know where they're going to map to my SharePoint list so that I have a better idea as to what that looks like. Then once I've done that, I parse that JSON into different variables. I create those tags, and then I go into SharePoint and I say get items. Oh, one of the things that a lot of people have about this, and I want to make sure I call this out, is the API only pulls down 100 at a time. So one of the settings that I want to make sure that I get, because sometimes it's not the right 100 that have been updated, is I want to get all of them. So what I turn on is pagination, and then I set my threshold to 1,000. So it will just paginate up to 1,000, all of the messages from Message Center, so that I have the full list. That way I make sure I'm updating everything that's in my list. That's one of the big things that a lot of people don't realize, is that you're able to do pagination and pull that across. So then I go get my items out of my list and I say, okay, use this MC lookup. So back in the SharePoint view, I actually created an MC lookup that only has message ID and last modified date. So with that, it pulls down the message ID and last modified date, and then I start doing some compares on it to see if the last modified date has changed. And if it hasn't changed or has changed, then I update the SharePoint item specifically. If it hasn't changed, it will just go through and create the new SharePoint item. So that process is a little bit different between the two, because in create SharePoint item, I'm adding all the fields that are associated from that Message Center post. If I'm updating, I'm just updating the fields, but this body content area is doing it as an append, because in SharePoint, I set it as an append field. All right, I'm watching my time. So the next workflow after I've brought all that data in is the message assignment workflow. And the message assignment workflow works like this. Once all of the data has been updated or changed, I am going to, when an item is created, I get the item and I initialize the stakeholders, and then I start going through my conditions. So if the condition service says Microsoft Suite, I append to the array. If it doesn't, it moves on to the next one, which is Copilot. I append to the array. And when I say append to the array, it's basically saying I'm going to the assign to field and I'm adding Burkholder John and I'm adding Kara Karthik. And basically I'm doing that for all these services all the way down. So if I go here and expand all, you'll see that this condition service of which basically service that it is associated to has all of these different flags associated. And then if I move down, we can continue with the condition services. And then when I move down, you'll see condition tags. And these are the ones.
You did this all by hand, John? Like you knew who the people were and worked through it?
Yep, that was all in the process document. That was all part of how we laid out our initial document of here's who all is getting assigned that. So there's a table that we've created that had a list of names that were associated for each one of the services that we had.
Before, when
And
we were
then-
working in Planner, we had a spreadsheet mapping workload to service owner, and every time before we had done any automation, we would manually look at the spreadsheet and see, okay, who needs to be assigned this task. Obviously, this is much more efficient, but we are embedding the knowledge of who service owners are for which workloads into this workflow.
You've got a couple of people in the chat, John, asking if you can sanitize and publish this. I'm not sure if you can, but there's a couple of fans that are after it.
I'm not sure if I can sanitize it, but I will look into it. But this is I'm just basically telling you how I built it. It was basically just like this. I go in and and we looked at other tags. So this is a condition tag. So in there's tags field. If it says data privacy, we actually said, okay, assigned to Roger Santos, because this is a security particular issue. If it's a feature update, we wanted to make sure that the stakeholders got updated so that it shows in the stakeholder field who these people should be notifying. And that condition tag actually has feature update, major update, new feature, or retirement. So if any of those conditions are met, it will automatically put those people as stakeholders. So this is kind of how we did it. This is how we laid it out to be able to do what we needed to do. We made a SharePoint list. We had the Power Automate message center timer. We had the Power Automate assignment flow, which put in the by service type, by condition type, assigned to multiples, stakeholders, assign unused services, even the unused services. So if nobody is assigned to that particular service because we don't really use it, then we just close it out automatically. It is an easy way for us to get that done. And now let's talk about future options. So one of the things that we're looking at is other products that we're adding to our new message center. And that includes things like Azure, desktop applications, third-party applications. We use things like EndNote and AvePoint and other products that are complementary to our Microsoft 365 products. We also have other products such as Salesforce or ServiceNow that may also need to be tracked. And that's the objective of this, is to expand it past where we are currently. Integration, we're looking at integrating CoPilot into this. We're looking at integrating Power BI reporting into this. And then last, we're looking at integration of third-party APIs so that we are pulling those down from via API just as much as we're pulling down the Microsoft Message Center into API. And the problem is that third-party APIs tend to give you the information in not the right format. So we would use CoPilot to transform the data to the known format that we already have in place. And then lastly, we want to try to integrate it into ServiceNow, which is adding for NORC change management process. So we actually have a larger NORC change management process. We would integrate that directly into that change management process. We want to make sure that we're updating service assets. So if we have a project that's associated to Teams, then we want to make sure that that service asset is updated as well. And then we want to have service alerts tied to the products and projects and the users as well. All right, I'm out of breath.
John, that was amazing to get all that in that time. I think we've talked about it privately, but that work you've done is amazing to get to that tiering of Power Automate and knowing where to go to add a service owner or add a tag. So really impressive. Thanks for sharing.
My pleasure.
Nice.
So I'm going to pass it over to Tom.
Yeah, chat's still open, so feel free to fire things in the chat. So this is the bit where I kind of pitch and compare and contrast the doing it yourself versus doing it with product. So obviously we've built ChangePilot for a number of years. I just want to emphasize, if you can do what John's done, like Planner or SharePoint with in-house Power Automate might be right for you. You can get a lot done there, as you've seen. If you've got the technical people to review the items and manage the process and build that level of automation, you can get a long way with what's in the box. You do need to have that person or team on staff who has that talent to do the integrations and manage the process. But if you have that, then definitely worth looking at. And just think about the ongoing management of that as well, the robustness of it. Like, you need someone who's got the diligence to not just build, but build and own, because quite often builders, and I don't know, Michael, if you've seen this, the builder gets excited about building, the maintenance is half the battle. So making sure someone is as diligent as John to look after it is really key. And so ChangePilot, just to introduce it, so we have a product that works in a similar way. We pull the message center messages, we review them, and we actually, similar to this workflow, we went through a phase where we were using SharePoint Lists, and now we use Dataverse and Power App. What we really bring to the party, if you need it beyond what John showed, is we pull out the actual dates of the items, so the frontier date, the standard date, the deferred date, the GCC high, so we can source and filter on those dates. We summarize the items and we summarize the changes. So we do 5-bullet summaries, all those updates John showed you, we update them as a summary of the date change from X to Y. We also do all the stuff you would get in a model-driven app, so item assignment, automation, basically everything clever that John has done, we've templated, so we can add service owners to a list and it magically pulls through to the workflows. So again, John has done an amazing job. If you've got the skill in-house, look at it. But if you need to do multiple tenants, you need to have a Dataverse audit log, you need to have additional fields, you need to have RBAC, so these people can control these items, but they can't control these items. I need actions on an item, and the actions have to be complete before the person can click the button to close the item. That's the power that Dataverse gives us to kind of take it to a next level of workflow. John, I want to give you a chance here, like, because you've seen both approaches, and obviously you built yours. Is there anything, is that a fair assessment? Is there anything you think that we do differently versus doing in-house?
I mean, when you're in-house, it does give you a little bit more flexibility within the area. One of the things that I think that I did not call out specifically was the fact that the notifications that come through on Teams. So as I get assigned something, it does come through on Teams. As I understand it, ChangePilot can also do that as well. When we looked at ChangePilot at the time, it just was not at that point where we could do what we needed to do, but ChangePilot has come a long way since we looked at it back then. And it would be a tough sell for us to do an inside build if we had to do it again, to be perfectly honest. So I think that ChangePilot is the right choice for some groups that don't have that internal expertise, just like you said.
Awesome. So we'd like to open the floor up now. If anybody has any particular questions, you can throw them in the chat. We will be sharing the recording after this. It will be sent out to everybody, if people who are listening on demand, so you can diligently go through some of that stuff, because I think there's tons of value there to recap on. And if you have any questions afterwards, we're all around in the change community fairly regularly, so I'm sure I'm not going to put John on the hook to answer them all. I'll put Michael on the hook as an MVP, so to answer your questions, and he can decide if John has to answer them or not.
Michael, are there any questions in the queue?
Just people wanting you to share your solution in some way.
Okay.
So we can look at what can be sanitized and shared, but we will put this video on YouTube. So if you've got questions, please put them in the chat or raise your hand. The other thing I want to point out to everyone is that I very occasionally blog about message center things, and but I do maintain a blog post on my blog, which is a resource roundup. So there's a couple of important Learn articles. There's the links to previous webinars. There's a list of third-party tools. So I'd recommend that to all of you. I'll put the link in the chat as well. And so we've done a couple of these webinars now. We're going to take August off and then come back September and October. We plan to do 2 more. And then finally, Microsoft, the product team behind Message Center and Service Change Communications, they run a change in health co-development group that Tom and I have been part of, John's been part of. If you're interested in that, you probably the best way to find out about that is through your Microsoft account team. So yeah, please check out the previous webinars that we've done, and we'll post this one on YouTube, and I'll update those 2 sites with the links.
Awesome. Michael, thanks for hosting and coordinating us. John, thanks for sharing so much detail. Again, real credit to you, what you've managed to build there with SharePoint Lists Power Automate in-house, super impressive. So thanks for sharing. And as Michael said, we'll hopefully see some of you on a future webinar. I've posted the events links there, and Michael's posted the blog links for the resources. But we will be sharing the recording and the deck. So any questions, feel free to just reply on the email as well. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks, John. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.